Good afternoon, this is Olga Tamanova. Welcome at the Media Center Ukraine Ukrinform, the 9th year of the war and 232nd day since the full-scale invasion of the Russian aggressor to our land. I would like to thank everyone who tells the world the truth about our fight for our freedom. Today our team prepared for you such press events. At 1:30, Serhiy Haidai will join us. He's the head of Luhansk Oblast Military Administration, and we will talk about the situation in Luhansk. We will talk about the security and humanitarian situation as of right now. 12 p.m. we will have an online discussion with Dmytro Zhivitsky. He's the head of Sumy Regional Military Administration. We will talk about Sumy Oblast and the situation there. And at 1 p.m. we will have Mykola Lukashuk. He's the head of Dnipropetrovsk Regional Council. We will talk about the aftermath of shelling in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. And now I'd like to present you our speaker. This is Olena Shulyak. She's the member of the parliament and the head of Servant of the People, Sluha Narodu political party. We will talk, despite everything, about the reform and rebuilding of our country. Olena, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. Indeed, regardless of anything, regardless the shelling, we continue to believe the armed forces of Ukraine. We continue to work. Each of us works at our front to make our victory closer. I would like to talk to you today about the reform that is related directly with rebuilding of our country, the reform that is happening in the parliament. I would like to point out 4 different processes as of today that have certain relation to how our country, Ukraine, will look a new and modernized country after we win the war. Today, as you know, we are doing very quick renovation, when very quickly transport connection in the occupied oblast is being reviewed. And also the energetic infrastructure is rebuilt, and also we are preparing to help people to enter the heating season with renovated homes. The government and the parliament are doing everything possible for this. From our reserve fund, from the state budget, we are allocating certain funds to every oblast that needs it, where we have this quick work on renovation. Another aspect that is very important, it is about the standards, the rules and principles that we will use to rebuild homes, infrastructure, social infrastructure in Ukraine after the victory. And I would like to talk to you about these standards. The third big direction is namely about the rebuilding of Ukraine. This is reforms. The parliament has worked primarily to adopt the bills that were related to strengthening the defense of our country, and then we were adopting also everything related to social welfare. But also now the parliament started working on the bills that are related to game changing in the construction market in order to make it more modern, to get rid of corruption, to introduce honest and transparent rules so that all participants of the process and the construction companies, the authorities, the communities, the representatives of business were all satisfied and would all receive certain results from introduction of such reforms. Looking at the reforms of reconstruction that we're now discussing in the parliament, I would like to emphasize that we have already adopted the bills related first to introducing in Ukraine the new rules of civil safety. This bill has already been adopted and signed by the president, and now when we're building new buildings, when we're planning new territories, planning the territories in the occupied oblast, when we do reconstruction there, we will take into account this civil safety requirements. We will build bomb shelters. We will build car parkings that can be used as bomb shelters. So this double-used infrastructure in order to provide as much safety as possible with this wild neighbor that we have. Together with the Ministry of Regional Development, we are studying the experience of Israel, Finland, Switzerland, those countries that have done certain work on this, that have achieved certain things in this sphere, and we hope that the Ministry of Regional Development will provide for public discussion the new construction norms that will be related to this new bill. The second issue that we have already viewed in the Parliament as part of Euro integration bills is a draft law on energy effectiveness. Increasing energy effectiveness and understanding it, we have introduced minimal standards for energy effectiveness that we will use when comprehensively providing modernization of buildings. It will allow us to do what have been achieved in the European countries when the old buildings were renovated in European countries, so that we don't heat the air, so that we decrease the demand for energy. This is especially relevant now for us during the heating season. Also, we're preparing a new bill, 7198. This is on compensations for Ukrainian citizens without waiting for reparations from the Russian Federation for the homes that have been destroyed. We are hoping that in the nearest time this draft law will be submitted for the second reading so that we can start this compensation process as soon as possible. We understand that this is a large amount of money. We now lack them in the state budget, but we found an opportunity to use the funds that were arrested from the Russian banks, from the Russian companies, and direct them to people having roofs over their heads. The issue of digital reconstruction, this is also a priority for us today, because we understand that digitalization of all processes is a way to combat corruption and also a way to make all the processes understandable, both in the construction market and in providing donor aid. And the recently created registry of damaged and destroyed property has already been launched in Ukraine. This will be the basis for providing compensation to citizens whose homes have been destroyed. This registry will also be the basis for the digital management of reconstruction, and this registry will also be the part of a big system that we can use to build different processes related to our modernized country. All the standards that are related to construction activities, state construction norms, standards for construction products, we are making them as close as possible to the international standards. We understand that in Ukraine, after the victory, international companies will be working, international financial institutions as well. So all the rules related to reconstruction, they must be as close as possible to those standards that those organizations and companies are used to. Starting from January 1st, 2023, European 305 will be working in Ukraine related to construction products, and we hope that it will help remove barriers between Ukraine and the European Union when trade in construction materials, and also the fourth direction, the big reform on city development. We started it before the war, and it's a good time to finish it. The three directions in the reform. First is a total, and I mean it, digitalization of all construction processes and all the documents related to construction activities, all of the participants of the construction market, starting from the officials who work in the local self-government, in the central authorities as well, all those who provide permissions locally, all those who are related to protecting cultural heritage, all the subcontractors, all the architects and designers, everybody works in the single digitized state system. All the documents are signed with a digital signature. You can always understand who issued this document, when this document was signed, so that when it comes to responsibility, we can always identify the person who issued a certain permission or did not issue a certain permission. The second important aspect of the city development reform is providing strict possibilities for local self-government to quickly react to illegal construction. We observe how our big cities before the wartime, Kyiv, Dnipro, and Odessa, Lviv, suffer from illegal construction. We very often see how local self-government not always quickly reacts to such construction. So in this reform, we give them the possibility to sometimes react very quickly, directly to illegal construction, to adopt decisions to stop and demolish such construction, not even waiting for the court decision. And we hope that these possibilities will move those who do not work honestly out of the construction market, and those who are used to working honestly, it will create competitive conditions for them. Also, city development is not possible without increased criminal and administrative responsibility for all participants of the construction process. So this draft bill that was adopted in the first reading and is prepared for the second reading on increasing responsibility, especially criminal responsibility. Not everybody likes it in the parliament as well. Not all the participants of the market like it. But without such increase of the criminal responsibility, we will definitely not be able to establish correct rules for the construction market. Another important document that I would like to introduce to you, this is the law that was signed by the president already. It already is in action. This is on programs of comprehensive renovation of the territories. This is on the occupied oblasts and areas. Such documents now must be in the focus of attention of the heads of oblasts, the heads of communities, and also mayors of the cities and towns that were destroyed. We think that this document is a strategic document. It should be a framework, and we should start the conversation with the donors, with the international financial institutions, based on this document. We also really want that in this document wasn't just about the destruction of the infrastructure and houses. We really want that at the local level all the issues were analyzed that are related to the economy. We wanted to be analyzed what happened to business in this or the other territory, and we know that hundreds of companies had been relocated from one oblast to the other. We know that hundreds of companies closed their businesses, and some of the companies, on the contrary, are thinking about moving to this or the other region. We want that such renovation programs include the economic situation analysis and business situation analysis. Another aspect is related to including the demographic situation of a certain locality or region into such renovation program, because a great number of people who left the country, there is a great number of IDPs, and when we approach the development of such documents, we definitely need to take into account these demographic characteristics. Another third aspect that is not of less importance, everything related to environment, all the issues there. Unfortunately, we have the oblasts that are mined heavily to demine them, and it is especially about the agriculture. It will require several years sometimes to solve this issue. So the environmental component that is related to demining, environmental component that is also related to construction garbage, not the garbage even, but debris, something that remains after destruction, what to do with it, where to take it. Maybe we should have some mobile factories for it, or permanent factories for it. Also, the local authorities need to think about it. In Bucha district only, there is 2 million tons of debris. This document of the program of comprehensive renovation will definitely be adopted and developed by the local authorities. There will be also public discussion of it, and it will be adopted at the corresponding sessions of local authorities. We are now expecting our oblasts, the occupied Zhytomyr, Chernihiv, Kyiv, Sumy, definitely Kharkiv oblasts. We expect them to meticulously work on developing such documents, because this will be a roadmap both for our international partners and the communities and the representatives of local and international business. This is why I talk about this document a lot, to emphasize it and to draw your attention to it. The registry of damaged and destroyed property is a part of our digitized renovation. As you know, through DIA and through administrative centers, there have been almost 300,000 applications submitted by citizens who inform about their destroyed or damaged property. This is more than 19 million square meters. As of right now, we understand that the real number of damage and destruction will be higher because not everybody had the opportunity to come back home and to document their destruction. With the law 7198 being adopted, all of these informational applications will be automatically turned into applications for compensation. All of these applications will be verified by commissions created by the local self-government bodies, and these commissions will have the technical role. They will be organizing technical evaluation, expert evaluation. This will be done based on the registry of damaged and destroyed property. All of the acts of such evaluation, all of the decisions made by the local self-government, all of the money that was allocated for renovation, and all the compensations that will be provided through this process, it will be able to be seen in this registry. There is a public module with open data in the registry obligatory, and it is created so that the public and also the international donors have access to it, can analyze information and make certain decisions. The reform on city development, we are waiting for 5655 and also the draft law on criminal responsibility. 5655 bill, we aim to destroy the monopoly of local authorities on providing land plots and providing permissions and controlling the construction, and such monopoly sometimes leads to corruption. Unfortunately, before the war, a certain number, 10 billion hryvnia annually, corruption things related to city development, and after the victory, we cannot allow our country to have corruption in the sphere of construction. So now we're actively preparing 5655 bill for the second reading. We have various expert consultations with different experts so that we could digitize, so that the local authorities obligatory have influence on illegal construction, and also so that we have increased criminal responsibility for all participants of the construction process. In this bill, we very clearly mention the criteria for illegal construction so that nobody would have the opportunity later to use the gaps in the law and to read the law in a different way so that they could avoid responsibility. We're also preparing the draft law on BIM. This is the technology that is actively used in European countries, and not only there. This technology are used especially in those constructions that are built with the money from the state budget, to decrease the mistakes, to decrease the time required to develop the design documentation, and also we needed to decrease the corruption risks. And also, finishing my small briefing, I would like to say that we have recently had a poll for Ukrainians. When Ukrainians were primarily worried about revenge to the Russian Federation for what they're doing in the territory of our country. And the second thing is that Ukrainians really want to have no corruption in our country after the victory. So all of our innovation reforms, they aim to destroy corruption, to stop corruption. And I hope that the Parliament, together with the Cabinet of Ministers, the professionals, the Office of the President, we will reach this goal. Thank you. Olena, thanks to the effective counteroffensive of our armed forces, we have many liberated territories, and number one problem for them is the renovation of critical infrastructure. We understand that, we see that. We very often usually hear that it is impossible to do quickly because design documentation, preparing it takes a lot of time. Is this component also included in this renovation plan? Design documentation, great that you're asking, because this project documentation, design documentation, especially when renovation is required of critical infrastructure, it is important that these documents are present because we knew that they were on paper before. We know that we are talking about temporarily occupied territories, that some documents were destroyed, some documents are impossible to be again restored. So it's important that it's electronic. It is important that it can be saved somewhere electronically so that we could work on it and also introduce changes to it if there is need. Of course, now some things are done without design documentation. Some things can be done based on some working documents related to design, but now there is the issue of speed. When we're talking about restoring infrastructure, the issue of speed is the most important to us because we see how much energy infrastructure was destroyed and how quickly we managed several days, and we don't have these problems and the tension that could have been present if, for instance, there was no electricity at homes. Dear colleagues, your question, please. Good afternoon, Yulia Gadina, Ukrinform. I have a question on state budget. The project of the state budget for 2023, how well is it prepared for the second reading? And there's also information that it will be adopted in October. Will this be successful in October? And how much of the state budget do you plan to allocate for renovating the damaged or destroyed objects of infrastructure? Thank you for your question. The work is being done. We have recently, just a week ago, have adopted the first reading of the budget. The Minister of Finance presented it in the Parliament. We call this budget the budget of victory because over 50% of the budget, more than 1 trillion hryvnia, is the money that will be spent on increasing the defense of our country. The second is social sphere, 432 billion. And this also will be allocated for paying pension payments, social welfare payments, a great amount of money for the IDPs and the problems that they are facing. Also, over than 100 billion for healthcare and education each. And those 1,200 amendments were submitted to these budgets. They were not yet taken into account. Part of it was taken into account already, but we do understand that primarily this is money for defense, and then everything else goes. Talking of the amount of money that we're planning for renovation and reconstruction, we have a draft bill 8027, and this draft bill talks about creating of the fund to fight the consequences of the military aggression of the Russian Federation, and this fund will be filled by the money that were arrested from Russian companies, Russian banks. There's certain money that can already be put into this fund. This is more than 19 billion hryvnia. So this is the last day to submit amendments to this bill. We are submitting amendments to use most of this money this year. If we manage to pass 7198 this year and also next year, to use this money for the compensation for damaged and destroyed property. I would like to remind that we are now financing damaged property from the reserve fund because administrations are asking for money as much as possible. The government works on this. Not always we can do the renovation quickly because there are some bureaucratic things. We need to organize a commission, have a technical evaluation, find the professionals, produce certain acts, insert certain data, but then again, our oblast heads are trying to make this process as quick as possible. Do you mean about the budget? I don't think that the budget will be passed in October. There's a certain procedure. The first reading has already happened. We are preparing for the second reading. Dear colleagues, are there any more questions? No more questions. Oh, there is a question.
А ви мені перекладете?
Okay. Thank you so much for doing this. My name is Franco Ordonez. I work for NPR in Washington, D.C. The United States and Western nations, Europe, have all committed to help out with reconstruction and the efforts that you're talking about. You discussed corruption in the construction area and that being a big concern, and that's something you're working on. Can you talk a little bit more about what specific steps you're taking to give taxpayers, U.S. citizens, citizens of other parts of Europe assurances that they will that they can be confident that that money that they provide will be properly accounted for?
First of all, I would like to thank the United States and everybody who helps Ukraine in different processes of renovation, not only physical renovation, not only the funds that they are providing, but also by supporting the reforms that we're implementing in Ukraine. Corruption can be fought if we have understandable modern approaches to all processes. As I have mentioned, one of them is full digitization. So Ukrainian Ministry for Digital Transformation, headed by Mikhailo Fedorev, he's one of the most progressive ministers, I would like to say, in Europe, but probably even in the entire world, because the digital instruments that are now being implemented in Ukraine, they are namely the step to fight corruption. I like the phrase that the President Volodymyr Zelensky once said, that a computer doesn't take a bribe. And it is really so. So if we remove the officials, people from issuing documents, making subjective decisions, if these processes are as automatic as possible, and if we work through electronic systems, and by the way, if we talk about the construction sphere, it really has some lacks when it comes to corruption. But this is one of the first spheres in Ukraine that the Ministry of Digital Transformation is working on for 3 years now. With the help of the international partners, we have introduced the single digital system related to construction, and this system corresponds with dozens of different registries, and this system will also be working and correspond together with the registry of damaged and destroyed property. And we think that digitization of all processes, this is the first step. And also there will be a public model of this system when by every object you can check what happened, what money was allocated, how the renovation is happening. Then we'll be able to forget about corruption. And if we talk about something that also worries us, it also worries the international partner on accountability, on the things that will be rebuilt for various funds. At the level of the parliament, we are ready to create interfaction groups, investigative commissions, temporary commissions to have any kind of parliamentary control, so that the renovation processes are as open, as transparent, and as public as possible. Also, let's not forget that the civil society is rather strong in Ukraine, and they're also very meticulously following all the processes on renovation. And the civil society will definitely give no margin for mistake and will not allow this money to be spent wrongly. Our task as the parliamentarians related to all the processes, not only the money allocated for renovation, but all the processes related to construction, is to divide control and overseeing supervision between different authority bodies in Ukraine, because currently the overseeing and controlling bodies are the same. But also we plan to introduce in Ukraine the institution of private controllers that works in the entire world, in the US as well, and in Great Britain and in France, in other European countries. We already have rather positive experience when the institution of private executives work in Ukraine, private notaries, so the process of involving private controllers over construction. This is also an opportunity to get rid of monopoly and possible corruption actions in construction sphere. We have many initiatives that the Parliament, I'm sure, will support with its majority, and we will see 226 votes plus in the session hall. Thank you, Olena. We had Olena Shulyak, the head of Sluga Narodu political party, with us. In several minutes, we will have Sergei Haidai with us. He's the head of Luhansk Regional Military Administration. Stay with us.